Hi, welcome back to my channel. I've decided I'm going to build my son a big shelf unit for this wall in his bedroom. Now, I'm an idiot and I forgot to take any before pictures, but you can kind of get the gist of what sort of space I'm looking at here. So I started out by doing a quick drawing, taking measurements and deciding what I wanted it to look like and what it was going to be used for. Then I made a full cut list for the full sheets of MDF that I was going to be using. I wanted to make sure that I could fit everything into 2 sheets, otherwise it was going to start costing an awful lot of money and I really didn't want to spend more than I had to. So I went straight down to the local DIY store and got them to do the big cuts for me, and then brought the rest of it home along with all the other materials and bits and pieces that we would need, and decided it was time to get measuring and cutting. So I measured everything out on each of the sheets of MDF and marked out each shelf, each piece, and put little stickers on so I knew exactly what was where. I also had a good cut list with all the details on and marked off when each one was done. In about 4 seconds, you're going to see just what happens when somebody puts the blade of your circular saw on backwards. Look at all that smoke! I can't believe it actually got through so many things before I realised. It took multiple passes to do even the most basic of cuts, and this was softwood. It's not like it should have done anything but go through it like a knife through butter. But luckily, after this, I finished all of the cutting and then realised the mistake, and so turned it around. So don't worry, I'm not working unsafely. Right, so I've cut all the pieces out now. Everything is cut to size. The only other cuts I've got to do now is to trim the battens that I'm going to put to the wall to the correct size, because they're going to sit above the skirting board, and I've cut them at the moment to the right size of the side panels. So I will need to measure the skirting board, take off that amount from each of the battens, and then I'm good to go. So let's go. I'm so scared right now. Now, this being the kind of house that it is, nothing is straight, nothing is square, so the best thing to do would be to measure every single one of the side panels individually, because the floor will go up or down. The walls would definitely not 90 degrees in the corners, and it's just smart to make sure that everything is measured specifically for where it's going to go. Now, this is the point where I start to realise just how out of plumb this corner really was. And there was actually an inch difference between the bottom and the top of this board compared to the corner once it was level. Blew me away. Don't know how on earth builders got away with this sort of stuff, but you just have to work with it. So I was very careful about making sure my measurements were right. I double checked, triple checked every single measurement, because I might have a bit of a history of measuring things once or twice and then cutting it wrong. So I didn't want to take that risk with this. I made sure to pre-drill the holes for where I was going to fix it into the wall, and I made sure that I used some really strong fixings because I do not want this coming down. Once this panel was already fixed to the wall at the top and the bottom, I started to mark out where the shelves were going to be so that I could then measure where the fixings in the middle of the board were going to be on the wall. I made sure to countersink everything because I wanted to make sure it was nice and flush and you wouldn't see these fixings later. The kind of fixings I'm using are specifically for masonry walls, as in the UK here we don't tend to have timber framing. So the fixings that I used are usually used actually for kitchen cabinets because they do tend to hold an awful lot of weight. So I knew these were definitely going to be good for the job. So once that board was up, it was time to start putting the batten on the wall for the next board. Now, in a few minutes, you're going to see the most ridiculous display of what I do when I work alone, because I can't hold a batten on the wall, keep it in place, and go over across the room and pick up my drill. So I held it in place with my head. Why not? And clearly my technique was not successful, as I still had to double check the plumb again after I'd done. So once that batten was secured to the wall, I then attached the next side panel using a clamp to keep it in place so that I could then screw in through the panel into the batten from the side. And then it was just rinse and repeat. Put on a batten, put on a panel. Pretty straightforward, really. And this is what it looked like when all the side panels were up. So the next job was to start putting the shelves, the top panel, all of that in place. The shelves in the corner part of the shelving unit were going to have to be fixed to the wall using these little mini makeshift brackets, just because I couldn't get round the other side to do it. Now I know I could have built the unit separately and then lifted it all into place, in theory, but this thing was heavy and there was no way on my own I was ever going to be able to lift something this size, let alone do it so that I could avoid a couple of brackets. It just seemed like a waste of time, really. With these lower shelves, it was easy enough to screw in from the side because you were never going to see that anyway, as it was under the desk. So that's the building part of this project done, and it's looking pretty good. Time to do the caulking, and you are about to witness the worst caulking you have ever seen in your life. Clearly not my thing. Looks fine now, but it's about to get really bad. I can only apologise you had to see that. Please don't do what I do. I am absolutely appalling at caulking. Anyway, now it was time to move on to the painting stage, and first I needed to make sure I used a good primer and primed all of this MDF before painting it. Okay, so I'm not sure how it's happened, but I appear to have lost all of the footage from finishing painting all the units, and then also I painted coloured backs to each of the shelves. So, a bit of a pain, but moving on, we painted a feature wall.
So, should I get this side?
No.
Oh, I don't want to put it in.
Go on then.
so satisfying.
That came off so neatly, and look how crisp those lines are. I love it. Oh, that is so neat. Oh, a little bit up there. Those lines are so crisp. I'm so pleased. So once all the paint was dry, it was time to start moving all of his stuff back into his bedroom and dealing with a few things that are really important to young boys. Don't worry about it. I think there are bigger problems right now than whether Hulk is bigger than Thanos in real life, sweetheart. Looking pretty good so far. I made these little box shelves by buying some little balsa wood boxes from Hobbycraft, painted them, and then I created some Lego silhouettes of Star Wars characters and put them inside. I took inspiration from Bob Claggett of I Like to Make Stuff, as he had something quite similar, but he made the whole thing from start to finish for his boot room, and I knew my son would really like them. And here it is, all finished. Plenty of room for my son's bobblehead collection and a little desk for him to do his homework at. I added a few lights at the end just to give it a little bit of extra something for him. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and take a look at my other videos.